What's up guys, Stephen Bogren here, Pro Physique. Today what I want to talk about is, do I need to squat to depth? Yeah. Oh, I want to be a squat thought. Yeah. I want to be a squat thought. I don't know what that has to do with anything right now. So what's up guys? Hope you're all doing well today. Trying to get back on that video grind. We went out to the LA Fit Expo, not this weekend that just passed, but the one prior, and it tore me up, man. LA, you are a rough city. Man, it took me days to get back to normal. So now that we are in fact feeling kind of normal-esque again, other than loss of beard, let's talk about this because I think it's definitely something that I hear a lot about. A lot of people are always asking me, like, do I need to squat to depth? Do I need to squat ass to grass? Can I do quarter squats? What does it really matter? And I think that the question bears answering. You know, it's definitely a good question. It's valid. And so let's chat a little bit about that. So first things first, if you're a powerlifter, yes, absolutely, you have to squat to parallel. If you are not getting your hip crease in line with your knee, you're fucking wasting your time. Plain and simple. If it's not going to count on the platform, it shouldn't be counting in the gym. So you might be able to have some days where, you know, you work in a little bit of sloppier, maybe some touch and go bench, right? Maybe you're not quite locking out your deadlift and that's not really an issue for you. You know, once you pass the knees, it's pretty much done. Okay, those are at least arguable points, right? Even so, I would still like to see you locking out your deadlift. I can definitely get away with, you know, some touch and go bench, but you should still have straight pause bench within your program to where you are in fact hitting a pause on your chest, right? You have to be ready for those commands. It's not the same on the platform. You need to make sure that you're practicing what you are going to need to perform. Now, squats, a little bit different. If you're squatting high, it's not going to count on the platform. It's going to be red lights. So we're essentially just kind of stroking our ego at this point, you know? If you want to compete in reps, awesome. If you want to compete raw, awesome. Doesn't matter to me what you want to do. Either way, you're going to need to be hitting depth. So for me, if you're a powerlifter, it's kind of a straight up, it does not matter. You need to hit depth, period. If you're not hitting depth, and you can't hit depth at the weights that you're using, we need to back those weights down. We need to make sure that form is good. We need to hit depth. Now, are you a bodybuilder? Whew. Now, this one's a little bit different. You really, if you're a bodybuilder, you don't even have to squat. Let's be real here. You can leg press, extensions, Bulgarian split squats, reverse lunges, regular lunges, walking lunges. There's a bunch of different exercises that we can do in terms of hitting the musculature of the legs that we don't have to squat if we don't really want to. Now, say we are still going to squat. Now, because of the fact that bodybuilders tend to have more volume in the programming, I think that it's much more important, you know, that we are very, very aware of how you're feeling musculoskeletally. Powerlifters, you already know this, we're always kind of battling some sort of nagging something or other. So I feel like it's not as important to say, hey, we really need to be attentive to form, right? Especially bodybuilders, we tend to do a lot more accessory work, a lot more stuff that's going to target smaller specific muscle groups. And so a lot of times you're trying to kind of feel it out. With our compound movements, we need to be very, very aware. I'm gonna fall backwards, I didn't, there we go. We need to be very aware of form, right? So similarly to the deadlift, you know, everybody's gonna have a little bit different mechanics in terms of the squat. We might squat high bar, we might squat low bar. Either way, we know that the spine is good at this kind of force, right? It's good against compressive forces. Shear forces, not so much. So one of the things that I don't see a lot of in bodybuilding is the Valsalva maneuver and helping to create that intra-abdominal pressure to help support the spine. Now, what I do see a lot of bodybuilders doing is worrying about all the time too tight, where it's not really actually performing the benefit of what it should be. So I think first and foremost, we don't need to necessarily hit depth, but I still think it's beneficial. I'll get into that in a little bit here. But before we even talk about that, we need to talk about taking care of the spine and making sure that we're doing the right things so that we're taking care of it at least as much as possible, right? There's always going to be wear and tear on the body, the joints, the musculature from weight training. That's kind of the thing. But we want to do the best we can to mediate that and moderate that as much as possible. So making sure that we're like doing things like the Valsalva maneuver to help protect the spine when we are in a more vulnerable position. Okay, so sweet. So first and foremost, we're taking care of that. Great. Now, do we need to squat to depth? No, we don't need to squat to depth. Do I think it's still beneficial? Yes, absolutely. I think it's beneficial to practice full range of motion on all our movements. I like to explain musculature kind of like Velcro. And so if you look at Velcro, if the Velcro is completely connected, it's much stronger, right? And so I like to compare the stretch to sort of coming out, right? So now we have less contact points. So essentially what the muscle's doing is it's contacting and it's pulling, right? So if we have less contact points, we create less force. Nothing, right? Pretty simple concept, hopefully. So that's how I like to explain that. So I think for me, it just makes sense because we're not always going to have good days. We're not always going to, hit every rep. We're not always going to be super strong. But if even on our bad day, we're hitting depths, say maybe we get a little loose and we come down too quick for that eccentric portion or that negative of the lift, we get a little bit lower, we're not getting caught, right? Because sometimes we get caught with that and like, oh fuck, I got a little bit sloppy, and it happens, but maybe those catch bars aren't set up. Maybe we're dropping the weight off, maybe we get caught underneath the weight if we have a lot of forward lean. Some bad shit can happen. So I think for safety's sake and just for full range of motion sake, I think it makes sense to practice that full range of motion of the lift. Now, I am not one to do a lot of stretching, I am not one to do a lot of mobility work, but in my legs, I do have pretty decent mobility. As you can see, I can pull my knees up to my chest pretty easily. Now, balance, a little bit different, but that knee's up, right? So, I definitely attribute that to squatting. Like I said, I don't do much else, right? So I think that that's also good in terms of my range of motion for that, being able to bring your knees up, right? Now, that being said, you don't have to squat to depth, you don't have to squat to parallel, you don't have to squat ass to grass. Is there benefit to it? Yes, I think there's benefit in certain circumstances. But if you are going to do less than full range of motion in your squats, you have to understand that you're using them for a specific purpose and utilize them accordingly. I would much rather that we utilize, that kind of idea, like we want to hit specific musculature with more accessory work, and I would rather do less volume, less intensity in terms of lower weights on the squats to practice that full range of motion. Personal preference, again, I'm a power lifter, right? I'm also a bodybuilder, but I think that the full range of motion also, if we put the weight down, we do in fact put less stress on our spine for that movement, and it provides us some benefits in other ways as well. So yeah, do I have to squat to parallel as a bodybuilder? No, you absolutely don't. And for some people, maybe it's hard for us to get in there. Maybe our biomechanics, our musculature, maybe we can't open the hips up to get the knees out. Maybe when we get low, we have a lot of valgus collapse, and so that's something we need to work on before we try and be squatting at that weight to depth. There's a lot of things to consider here. So, do you need to squat to depth? Do I have to squat to depth? As always, it depends. It friggin' depends. No real set answer. But my opinion is that squatting to depth, full range of motion, is going to be more beneficial to you in the long run as a whole as an athlete, no matter what your sport. So, do I have to? No. Should you? Probably. But a little bit of training talk this today. Fuck. I'll just cut that out later. No, I won't. Just because I feel like I talk a lot about the mental stuff, and so I want to get a little bit more into some of the other things as well. But we'll leave it there, guys. Should I squat to depth? Yes. Do I have to? No. Do I even have to squat in general? Absolutely not. At least not if you're a bodybuilder. So That's it, guys. Have a great one. Talk to you soon.